of the day, thanks mostly to Jet Greaves, let's be honest. So we're going to talk about the goalie drama that is happening to the Blue Jackets once again on today's Locked on Blue Jackets.
You're Locked on Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked on Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favourite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I also have to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet win. Just go to FanDuel.com to learn more. Blue Jackets win. Hooray. They keep their playoff dreams alive. They are still very slim because they need the Canadians to basically lose every single game in regulation going forward. But they're alive. They did what they could, right? Which maybe it's, 2 weeks too late, but big win against the Sabres, who came out strong to start, had nothing to lose, put up over 40 shots on the Blue Jackets, which is not like my favorite thing that this defense core has done, but Blue Jackets were playing with 5 defensemen for a lot of the game. So we'll talk about that in a second here, but the Blue Jackets, Jay Christensen only played 4 minutes, so that tells you that, right? They lost Werenski for a chunk of the second period, I want to say. But they got the win. They figured it out. Jet Greaves was phenomenal. We're going to talk about that first, actually. We're going to talk about Jet Greaves. We're going to talk about if there's another goalie drama brewing with this team, because why not finish the season like you started it, right? And then we're going to talk about the Would You Rather Defenseman edition that I posted up on the Twitter and the YouTube community tab. So I posted a couple of options that the Blue Jackets could go after in free agency and asked, would you rather? And we'll talk about that in kind of the third segment here. But I want to talk about the game first because it didn't start great. Let's be honest. The Blue Jackets were down 2-0, 10 minutes into the period, I want to say. It was... First goal was scored 12 minutes in. The second goal was scored 15 minutes in. First goal, no issue, just an absolute rip from JJ Peterka. People were like, man, Jet Greaves should have stopped that. Okay, if you say so. Sometimes a shot is just a shot, right? Like that was a hell of a shot from Peterka. The second goal probably should have had, and I tweeted about this, you could have put the Benny Hill soundtrack over that, or circus music, and it wouldn't have been out of place. Just a comedy of errors from every single Blue Jacket on the ice. Darlene puts the puck in. Blue Jackets fans are starting to get a little tense, right? Down 2-0. We've seen this before. Could go either way. Blue Jackets have been very, very bad at starting games on time for the past 6 weeks or so, let's say. I believe they've been scored on first in 15 of their last 16 games, if I'm remembering the math right from a couple of games ago. It's looking pretty grim. James Van Riemsdyk scores to make it 2-1, and you love to see it. It's a game. Second period, tense. Third period, also tense. But I want to say that Jet Greaves, MVP, easily the MVP of this game for me. He allowed, I believe, 2 goals on his first, I want to say 7 shots. 6 or 7 shots. He allowed 2 goals, and then allowed 0 goals for the next 35. Absolute monster second period from him, where the Sabres had 18 shots on goal. They had 15 shots on goal in the third period. Jet Greaves, gamer. And he played last night as well. He played back-to-back games. He played a game in Cleveland, drove to Columbus, started the game in Columbus and was excellent. Like 39 saves for a guy that 12 hours before the start of the game probably didn't know that he was going to be playing. Maybe didn't know he was going to start until, he got to the rink, whenever he, got there from Cleveland. Steps into the game, does great. Which does create maybe not a problem, but as I noted, as a couple other people noted, like it doesn't bode great for Daniil Tarasov that the starting goalie is injured, and instead of calling up Jet Greaves as insurance and playing Tarasov in this game, they call up an AHL goalie who played the night before and start him over you, which does make me think that probably the blue, like Daniil Tarasov, I think might have played his last game as a Blue Jacket. It sounds like Jet Greaves is going to be with the team this weekend. I don't know what's going on with Elvis, but the Monsters made a corresponding call. They called up Pavel Chayan from the ECHL, so it looks like it's going to be Sochenko and Chayan this weekend for them, which is not great because the Monsters are in a playoff hunt right now. They're doing okay, but probably they would like to have their starting goalie, it's gonna be Greaves and I don't know who this weekend. Like, this is the thing. If Elvis is healthy, do they send Greaves back down and roll with an Elvis and Tarasov over these two must-win games, or does Jet Greaves get the start on Saturday and then Sunday they figure it out? I will say that it is a noon start for the Blue Jackets on Saturday, I believe, or like a 12:30 p.m. start in, I believe, in Nationwide in Washington. In Washington. And then from there, excuse me, at Nationwide on Saturday. On Sunday, they're in Washington at 6 p.m. the next day. So that's what, 28 hours between games? My math is real bad. 30 hours between games. Or 30 hours between puck drops. There's a world where Jet Graves starts both games this weekend, which again, I don't think is like great for. Well, it's not great for Tarasov, obviously, because if you'd rather, again, play an AHL goalie, and this is like no shade to Jet Greaves, by the way. Like, I'm calling him an AHL goalie because he is the third string goalie in this organization. Whether he deserves to be the starting goalie in the NHL or whatever, like, I'm not getting into like those kind of semantics. Fact of the matter is, right now, he is the starting goalie in the AHL, so I'm calling him an AHL goalie. Like, playing an AHL goalie back-to-back games when your season's on the line, of course, it all depends on what happens tonight. Because if the Canadians win tonight in regulation, then the Blue Jackets are eliminated. If they lose in regulation tonight, starts to get a little more interesting. Like, the Blue Jackets, again, season on the line, nothing to play for. Why not have some fun with it? It's going to be tough playing Washington, but I believe Washington has clinched the Eastern Division, the Eastern Conference. Sounds like they might be considering resting Ovechkin for the Saturday game at least. Might start resting other guys, get ready for the playoffs, So this might work in the Blue Jackets' favor. But you gotta, like, what a time to decide that now is when you're going to figure out your goaltending, right? Is, okay, well, Elvis is out of action. Calling up Tarasov and making him drive 2 hours to come and start in a game when he played last night. Like, it's not great for Greaves, for Tarasov, excuse me. It's probably not great for Greaves either. I bet he's feeling it tonight, this morning, because again, he faced 41 shots after probably not knowing for sure that he was starting until, 6 hours before the game. Great performance from him. Gutsy performance from the forwards. Would have liked them to be a little bit better defensively. Obviously, like, the Buffalo Sabres are a very good goal-scoring team. They're not great at shooting the puck, which sounds it sounds contradictory, but they're 21st in the league in shots for per game. They average about 27 shots a game, and they put 41 up on the Blue Jackets. Like, you should be doing better than that, quite frankly. So that was frustrating, but again, and we'll talk about this in a second, they played most of the game with 5 defensemen. They played a big chunk of the game with 4 defensemen, and then they decided to kill an entire penalty with 3 defensemen when Denton Matejchuk took a delay of game penalty. There was a moment there where Jody Shelley was speculating that we might get like defenseman Mathieu Olivier for that PK, which would have been maybe not like effective, but also really funny. That being said, let's take a quick break. Let's talk about the defenseman and why this doesn't bode great for the Blue Jackets' chances going forward. We'll do that in just a second here at Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I've got to tell you about Game Time. There's nothing like the energy of live sports, whether it's catching a last-minute baseball showdown, soaking in the excitement of a basketball matchup, but finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge until I found Game Time. Game Time makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices actually drop as the event gets closer, and with their all-in pricing, you can see the total cost up front, which means there's no surprise fees at checkout. I love getting last-minute tickets. When I'm in California, quite often I will finish work. My partner will finish work and we'll be like, oh, hey, the Sharks are playing tonight. Let's go and pay $19 American to go to a game in an hour and a half. And I can do that on Game Time, and it's so easy. And they've got a low price guarantee, which means I never worry about overpaying. If I find tickets in my section and row for less, Game Time will credit me 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. LOCKEDONNHL. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We've talked about the goalie drama. Let's talk about potential defenseman drama. Because Jake Christensen just managed to get back in the lineup. Got injured like at some point in the first period, I want to say. I don't remember when exactly, but he only played 4 minutes. He played 4 shifts. Took a puck, like it looks like he took a puck like right in that space where the shoulder pad stops and the chest pad hasn't started yet. There's like a weird place there where the shoulder pad is kind of like flippy. So if you get it caught at an angle, it can go up, and it looks like it caught him like right above the rib cage and right below the collarbone. Which it sounds like such an awful place to take a puck. He didn't return to the game, which again doesn't bode great, because now that does mean that we are going to be subjected to either Damon Severson or Jack Johnson, because Jordan Harris, I guess, is in jail forever. I don't know. It's probably going to be Jack Johnson, which does mean that the Johnson Gabranson pairing is going to return and be an adventure, which sucks. I do think that contributed to the Blue Jackets getting outshot, because playing 5D is difficult, right? No one really gets a chance to get a rhythm going. No one, like, it looked for the most part like they just kind of rotated through defensemen. So, I saw Matejchuk and Fabro as a pairing. I saw Werenski and Provorov as a pairing. Like, I saw Fabro and Gabranson. I saw a lot of Provorov and Gabranson, which was a real adventure, as it usually is. Like, I believe Ivan Provorov actually led the team in time on ice. Yeah, 27-36 for Provorov, 24-20 for Gabranson. Werenski only played 23-46, but he missed a ton of time. Like, not a ton of time, but he got caught, I want to say, like, in the second period sometime? It was... it was the third period, because it was just as the Boone Jenner goal was scored. It was he got slashed by Lafferty, took a penalty, and then during the power play, it looked like he got slashed again, and like it busted his thumb up in a real, like, I don't know. Having taken pucks to like the tip of my finger before, like that hurts. So I can only imagine that, getting whacked with a stick also hurts. And, there's a lot going on in the tips of your fingers. It looks real bad. When you cut the tip of your finger, it always looks like a horror scene. And so I think it probably was one of those things that looked worse than it is, but he had to go stop the bleeding. So he missed, He basically left the ice during that power play and then didn't come back until he came back during the Matejchuk PK, I believe. I believe it was as that penalty was starting. Werenski comes back down the tunnel, which is great news, but it means he missed about 7 minutes of game time, which probably Werenski would have been on the ice for probably 4 of those 7 minutes, let's be honest. So I'm not surprised that his ice time was quote unquote low. But I was surprised that Gabransson's was so high. Fabro and Matejchuk only played about 19 minutes each, which again is a choice that was made. But Blue Jackets got the win. You love to see it. Werenski continues to have a great season. He's at 56 assists now, which I believe is second most all time for a Blue Jackets player. Sean Monahan gets an assist as well. Kent Johnson just continues to impress. Like, there's a real chance that Kent Johnson is a point-a-game player next season. It's going to be mostly assists. Like, Kent Johnson might have 50 or 60 assists next season. He's such a good passer. I have no complaints about anything Kent Johnson has done this year, let's be honest. But gets an assist on the Van Riemsdyk goal, the goal that, brought them back to life a little bit. There was 8 seconds left in the period. Just a ridiculous pass from Kent Johnson, James Van Riemsdyk, who probably should have been in the lineup all along instead of sitting him for Luke Cunnin, but we don't have to get into that right now. 15th of the season. Blue Jackets, again, scoring on an empty net, kind of a comedy of errors in that they can't seem to do it. I believe I was tweeting about this as well, and I might be wrong about this, but was the last time they scored an empty net goal the outdoor game? I was trying to think, has there a empty net goal sooner, more recently than that? And I don't know that there is, which is a problem. Because, okay, mostly it's because the Blue Jackets haven't been in the situation where the other goalie's gone. Like, they haven't played a lot of empty net time, mostly because they don't know how to score goals anymore. So they're always playing from behind, which again is the problem. But just again, watching the Blue Jackets try to score an empty net continues to be extremely comical. I just want to give credit to Boone Jenner with that power play goal. The most Boone Jenner goal that was ever scored. And I know that I've given him a lot of flack in the past kind of handful of episodes for playing above his means, but he's got 19 points in 22 games since coming back from injury this season, which is extremely not nothing, right? And I think partially that's because he's got fresh legs, fresh everything. But this might be his best point a game pace, maybe ever. He had 35 points in 58 games last season. His career high is 49 when he had a 30-goal season back in 2015-16. And he had 49 points in 82 games then. So, this is a real good pace for Boone Jenner, and I think it helps, again, that he's playing on average about 2 minutes less than he's been playing for the past 3 seasons. Again, sometimes you limit someone's minutes and you get a better version of them. Who could possibly have seen this coming, right? But for the most part, defensively, a little lackluster. Goaltending, phenomenal. No complaints about the goaltending. Good to see Aston Reese get a goal. Good to see James Van Riemsdyk get a goal. I don't know that they can play like this weekend against the Capitals and have success, right? That feels like it's going to get a little that feels like it's going to be a little bit of an adventure if they decide to play like this against the Capitals. Now, the Capitals have slightly less to play for now, I think. Ovechkin's hit the record. He might not have even been playing on Saturday. And they've basically clinched their spot. They've got home ice all the way through the Eastern Conference, at least. And do they maybe want to try and catch the Jets, who are probably going to win the President's Trophy? Maybe, but I don't think that matters a ton to them. They are currently on 109 points. The Winnipeg Jets are on 112 points. So possible, sure, but I don't know that that's that doesn't seem super important in the grand scheme of things. Maybe I'm wrong, but who could say? Let's take another quick break, because I think I'm done talking about the game now. And let's talk about the results of the Would You Rather polls that I put up yesterday. Which free agent defenseman would you want Don Waddell to go after in the summer. So let's talk about that in just a second here at Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I want to tell you about FanDuel because the NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking the Blue Jackets to win a game or diving into, like, player props. Is Kromachenko going to score a goal? Probably. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com today and claim your $250 in bonus bets by placing your first $5 bet and winning. That's FanDuel.com, official partners of the NBA and also us, the Locked On Podcast Network. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. Let's talk about would you rathers, because the Blue Jackets need another defenseman. They need to rehaul the defense. I don't know what the options are here. Like, my guess is Provorov. Like, Provorov, I keep going back and forth on whether Provorov's going to be here next year. I don't think he should be. It all depends on the contract that he gets, right? I think he wants a long-term contract, and I don't think the Blue Jackets will or should give it to him, right? Can they get rid of the Severson contract? Like, what happens with Dante Fabro? I'd like to think that they sign him. I don't think they'll sign him long term necessarily, but I could see them giving him, a couple of years. And, he's still youngish. They can reassess in a couple of years, right? But Don Waddell wants to, quote, rehaul the defense, which it's kind of how they got into this problem to begin with. Of they decided that the defense needed rehauling. They go out, they get Severson and Provorov, and it's not great. Let's be honest. But I asked, there's a couple of notable UFA defensemen that are ostensibly available, and it really, again, depends on what depends on what you value in defense, I guess. So I picked Aaron Ekblad, who's currently with Florida, currently suspended for PEDs, and I picked Vladislav Gavrikov, who a lot of Blue Jackets fans should be very, very familiar with. Both pending UFAs, both bring something very different to their teams, I think. So I was like, okay, which one do you want more? And I put the polls up on Twitter and on the YouTube community page, and the results were kind of what I expected. Vladislav Gavrikov won in both situations, I believe. Vladislav Gavrikov got 65% of the Twitter votes. Aaron Ekblad got 31, and then 3.4% somebody else. We'll get into somebody else in a minute. And then on YouTube, 61% said Gavrikov, 35% said Ekblad, and 4% said a mystery third option. I didn't really have like a horse in this race necessarily. I like them both. I think they both bring something to the team. Ekblad is younger. I think Ekblad is more of a two-way defenseman. He's not going to come and he's not going to be your shutdown guy, right? And he's not going to come and he's not going to put up Werenski points. He feels very much like a Fabro style defenseman of he'll come in and he'll complement the player that you put him with. And like the Blue Jackets need a partner for Matejchuk right now. I think Ekblad could be that partner. I would also love to see Vladislav Gavrikov return to the Blue Jackets. He is one of the best shutdown defensemen in the league. He's been excellent for LA since he went there. He was a guy that I really, really wanted them to keep. I understand why they sold, because you got a first-round pick for, I believe they sent Gavrikov and Korpisalo and got a first-round pick. That was the Jonathan Quick trade, Blue Jackets legend Jonathan Quick. So that was that. But they traded him. That's fine. He extended there in the offseason, has done very well in LA. I don't know what LA's defensive situation is like right now. I know there's a lot of there was drama for a minute there of like, well, what are they going to do with Brant Clark because he can't get into the games because they'd rather play 700-year-old Drew Doughty than him, but if Gavrikov is available, I would have him back in a second. Like, this team needs a defenseman that can play that shutdown defense. He's what Provorov should have been, or not what Provorov should have been. He's what the Blue Jackets should have gotten instead of going out and getting Provorov and or Severson, right? Like, they went and they decided we need to get bigger, we need to get healthier on defense. So they went and they got Provorov, who admittedly I don't think has ever missed a game for the Blue Jackets, has missed like 4 games his entire NHL career, which is admittedly impressive. And they went out and got Severson as well, who was a very durable defenseman at the time, and then immediately got injured when he got to Columbus, because of course he did. And he missed like a month or so of his first season with the Blue Jackets with like a oblique injury, I want to say. Just because again, this team is cursed and can't have nice things. But Gavrikov is not going to break the bank. You don't need to sign him for a long time. He's a guy that I feel like you could probably get for, if you want to pay him like $5 million for the next 3 years, I would be more than okay with that, right? I think Aaron Ekblad will be better for the team in general, just because I think Aaron Ekblad is one of the more underrated defensemen in the league. He gets a lot of flack for not being like a perennial Norris candidate, or for not being like Rasmus Dahlin. He was a first overall pick. I do think that the Panthers fumbled his development a lot, because baby defensemen, you can't just throw them in the NHL and hope that they'll do okay, right? You need to give them time. He played in the NHL as a defenseman, as an 18-year-old, probably when he shouldn't have done. And I do think that kind of put a cap on his development, put a cap on his ceiling that probably wouldn't have been that had he spent another season in the OHL. But I like Ekblad a lot. I think it really depends on what happens with the Panthers this postseason. Obviously, they've brought in Seth Jones, which to me says that they're moving on from Aaron Ekblad. But I think now it comes to, okay, what's Aaron Ekblad going to do in the playoffs, right? He's suspended. I believe he's eligible to return for game 3 of the first round of the playoffs. So he'll miss the first 2 games, and then he'll come back. And I think it really all depends on what he does for the Panthers. Like, is he going to be able to go back and be that number 1 defenseman, or is that Seth Jones' job now? Like, has Seth Jones taken that job and done well enough to keep it? I don't pay enough attention to the Panthers to know one way or the other, but if Aaron Ekblad finds himself relegated to, second pairing defenseman or lower in the lineup, I wonder if his price falls. You're probably going to sign Ekblad for longer than you'd sign Gavrikov, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But Aaron Ekblad is currently making $7.5 million. I don't remember how long that contract was, but he's 29 years old. I like Aaron Ekblad. Like I said, I think he's a good player. I think he would be good for this team. I think it depends on, again, it kind of depends on what the Blue Jackets do with Provorov, Severson, Fabro. But I would love to see Ekblad on this team. I would also love to see Gavrikov on this team. I think Gavrikov is going to be less flashy. He's not going to be like the fun UFA signing that I think a lot of people want, but he is going to add something that this team needs, which is like the ability to play actual shutdown defense, and occasionally score a goal and also have some fun. Plus, he would join in with all of the Russian shenanigans, which should be extremely fun, because the Blue Jackets have a billion Russians. So I like both of these options, if I'm being honest. Someone else mentioned Neil Pionk, and I was talking to JD Young of Locked On Sharks about Neil Pionk, actually. Like, I would love to have him on my team. I can't see him leaving Winnipeg, if I'm being honest. Like, again, I don't have, like, a super great concept of what Winnipeg's defense looks like right now, but they don't have a ton of guys signed long term. They don't have a ton of guys making like $1 billion. They only have 2 players signed after next season, and that's Josh Morrissey and Dylan DeMello, and they're both signed until 2028. I can't imagine they let Pionk walk. Again, depends on what happens in the postseason. He's only making 5.8 at the minute. I reckon he could, like, they could give him 8x7, and I think that would probably be absolutely fine for Pionk. If you can pry him out of Winnipeg, sure, but he feels like a guy that is gonna. He was born a Winnipeg Jet and he's gonna die a Winnipeg Jet, right? Like, it's hard to leave a winning team. Winnipeg Jets are one of the best regular season teams in the NHL and have been for a few years now, right? Like, it's gonna be tough to convince them to leave that and go to a team that is, maybe at the start of being a really good team, but I don't know. I can't see Pionk leaving the Jets. He feels like a Jets lifer, and again, I would love to have him on the team. I just don't know how likely that is. My guess is that Ekblad and Gavrikov both go elsewhere this summer. Again, playoff performances, outstanding, but they feel way more likely to me than Pionk, and I wouldn't be unhappy with either of them. Like, honestly, if they went out and got both of them, I'd be like, sure, why not? It would create again another kind of a logjam for many of the younger players, but like if you can if Provorov doesn't resign, if you can get rid of Severson, Branson's only under contract for one more year, so like if you can juggle that, bring in both Gavrikov and Ekblad, you might have something there. I don't think any of the baby defensemen are going to be close enough next season to be real problems. Like trading Juracek sucked. It has kind of moved the defensive prospects timeline a little bit because obviously they're really high on Charlie Ellick. I like Stanislav Svozil a lot. But really the only NHL ready guy they have right now is Denton Matejchuk, who has been excellent. But it does give them a little bit more flexibility with, well, they can, they can maybe sign Vladislav Gavrikov for 2 years to be a partner for Matejchuk, I don't know what's going to happen with Dante Fabro. I would love to see them re-sign him, but I don't know if they will. Like, I'd like to think they will, but we are at the whims of Don Waddell, right? There's a room for them to sign both of these guys, and if they can sign both of them without, making, guys like Matejchuk or Christensen the odd man out, then I say go for it. But we'll see how it goes, right? That's what I've got for today. No episode tomorrow. I'm going to try and get an episode out on Sunday, depending on what happens with the playoff race. Depends on how much I want to talk about the game that happens on Saturday. We'll see. But thank you for listening to this episode. If not, we'll have an episode on Monday all about the weekend series against the Capitals and the playoff race / elimination conversation. And we'll talk about would you rather for goalies as well. Which free agent / tradable goalie would you like to get your hands on? So we'll talk about that at the beginning of next week sometime. I've been Jay Foster. Thank you for listening. Making it your first listen of the day every single day. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JakobForster. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jacket. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Thank you once again for listening. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts and over on YouTube. And until Monday, make sure you stay locked on.